Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland Review podcast. It's been a stormy weekend and a stormy few weeks at Sunderland, but the storm has subsided slightly with a gutsy 2-1 win over Cambridge United. And once again, I'm a little bit croaky, but hopefully we can get through this with the work of two debutants and a returning voice. First and foremost, in the red and white corner, it's Dave Lawrence. Dave, how are you? Are you all right, mate?
Yeah, very well, thank you, yes.
Good. Always nice to hear. Nice, short and sweet, but that's always what you want to hear, isn't it? You've never said bad yet. Imagine if you came out like, I'm horrendous. I've never had that yet. Alongside him, podcast debutant, Phil Wilson of the Sunderland Central Supporters Branch, the second best looking member of that. Phil, how are you doing? Are you all right?
All right, yeah, I'm doing fine, thanks. I'm doing fine, happy. 3 points yesterday, I'm happy.
Good. And of course, another, last but not least, podcast debutant. It's Jack from Under The Abbey Stand, Cambridge United fellas. I'm sure you know Jack, opposite ends of the spectrum, but how are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I mean, not bad, apart from yesterday. It was a tough old watch and a cold old day, but yeah, I'm getting all right.
Yeah, it looked freezing yesterday. I mean, I'm sure we'll get onto it, but the conditions weren't great. I think you were the one of the four of us that went to the game yesterday, Jack. How cold was it on a scale of 1 to 100? I'm
actually a northerner by birth, and it was like being back in the north. It was absolutely freezing. Baltic.
I was at the Lionesses game yesterday, and I've got to be honest and say that I think that was potentially the coldest that I've ever been at a football match, like to the point where my feet weren't even hurting. They weren't there, but they felt very heavy because they were that cold, like blocks of ice. But both sides won, so, all good. Apart from for you, Jack, of course. I'll come to you first, Dave. Lineup was bizarre looking, but kind of forced because we weren't sure if it was a 4 at the back or a 3 at the back because it's just that many players injured, and namely a lot of left backs. But do you think that's how we'll go to Christmas? And what did you think of the lineup, or would you change the formation? There's 3 questions for you straight off the bat.
Oh, I'm glad I'm not the one who gets paid to make these decisions. Yeah, best of a bad bunch. I guess it's a pretty harsh comment, really, but yeah, if it worked, didn't it? It's what they get paid to do. They've got to adapt. They've got to. It was quite. I did say a couple of tweets before the game saying, horrible weather, swelling winds, nice and cold. At least we're Sunderland and we're really good at adapting to conditions. So yeah, I wasn't that hopeful. Yeah, but hey, win's a win. Win's a win. Doesn't matter how we do it. We move on, don't we?
Yeah, it feels like a win is a win. I mean, there was a lot of discussion yesterday around because everyone was getting the lineup through as we're at the Lionesses game, and obviously there was a big bulk of Sunderland fans there, and everyone was going, "Is that Dejak who at left wing back?" Turned out, panic over it wasn't. It was basically Gucci at right back and Doyle at left back, which I've wanted to see Doyle at left back for a little while. I think it's a position where he can do a job considering everyone else is injured. But Phil, I'll come to you with formations. There's been a lot of people wanting to see 3 at the back. We went with 4 at the back yesterday, and round pegs and square holes, or square pegs and round holes, whichever you prefer. What did you make of the Doyle at left back, Gucci at right back? Would you change the formation, or were you quite happy with how it went?
Well, if you remember before the game last week, when we were down for the Ipswich game, it looked like 09 was going to be back in at fullback again then. And I said, well, why? We've got so many centre halves. Why not move Doyle along to left back? He's a defender. He's big. He's strong. He's left-footed. It would make sense. Of course, they didn't do that, and 09 actually had a really good game at left back that week. So I was hoping yesterday that with 09 not being in, that's what they would do. And it looked to me that that's how they were playing. I didn't actually have the sound on the game yesterday. I think the sound quality is really poor, so I just watch it without the sound. But in the interview at the end of the game, Johnson said we were actually playing with a 3 rather than a 4. Okay. But I watched the whole game, and to me it looked like Doyle was left back and Gooch was right back. I didn't see any 3-5-2 there, but what do we know? But yeah, it seemed to work quite well. I think there was a second half in particular, we were absolutely bombarded with corners. I think there was something like 11 corners in 20 minutes. It was just seemed to be one after another, right on top of the defence and the keeper, and they managed to stand up against it. So as a formation, maybe stumbled upon something that, given the amount of injuries we've got, might actually work going forward in the short term.
Got to be honest, I didn't listen to the Johnson's presser. It's got to the point where not presser, sorry, he's post match. It's getting to the point where if I want to watch The Office, I'll just put it on Netflix.
If I remember rightly, it was Jack Ross who started all this, wasn't it? Started with whole lopsided back fours and stuff like that.
Yeah, Conor McLaughlin at right wing back days. Yeah, they were the days.
Missed.
I know.
Miss them so much.
I just bring them back. Jack, on the flip side for you, your manager said it was a week of what might have been, which seemed like a pretty fair summarization. But how do you view it?
Yeah, it's a massively frustrating week, to be fair. To be 2-0 up against Wigan with like 10 minutes to go, and then to draw that game. And then yesterday, like, Sunderland were good value for the win, but also the second half, like, we just needed to take our chances. We had, like you say, we had all those corners, kind of all that possession in the second half. Like, Sunderland played really well when they had the wind. We huffed and puffed, but we didn't have the killer instinct. We didn't really have a shot in the second half for all the possession and all the corners. We weren't really dangerous. Like, you never really looked like you're going to concede. So it's massively frustrating to get 1 point from those two games. It's also, it's a bit early to be saying it, but it is slightly worrying when you're looking over your shoulder towards the bottom four. You do start to think we need to get a win out of somewhere. So yeah, yesterday was frustrating. We scored a nice goal, but I mean, other than that, we didn't look particularly dangerous.
It's funny, isn't it, when you hear this is why I quite like having opposition fan on, because I read yesterday on Twitter a few times during the game that Cambridge were dealing with the conditions better than us in the second half. And yet on the flip side, it's funny, isn't it, how a Cambridge fan feels it the opposite way around. I don't know if that had something to do with the amount of corners that you had. I know nothing came from fruition, but it felt like the Amlo points. I wonder if people are looking at that and going, well, corners are the right thing to do at this point. But I mean, I remember a game, and I'm really going back here, Southampton versus Sunderland at Roker Park, 96, 97. So I'm really going back here. So apologies for anyone under the age of 35 that doesn't remember that game. We got beat 1-0. And I think second half, Chris Waddle had about 40 corners. I'm definitely over-exaggerating that. But nothing came from it. It was like huffing and puffing. Are you normally quite decent off corners, Jack? Or was it like a day off for you in a sense?
Yeah, I'd say we're all right. I mean, I think the difference yesterday was like, when you get that slice of luck from a corner where the ball bounces to our striker or whatever, it just didn't happen yesterday. But, I feel like we could have done better from them. There was a couple of duffers that didn't beat the first man, a couple that were just kind of floated in. I think, like, with that wind, you want to drive it in and let the wind take the ball, and then, hopefully someone gets touching it. But like your first goal. So I just think, I don't think we managed the game particularly well yesterday.
Because I think Ironside was obviously one of the players that I was concerned about because of his sheer height and corner after corner after corner. He's probably the one that you want to get in the end of it, but he never really got a sniff. It was more I've got to be honest, I was very surprised to see Sam Smith, the vocalist, playing up front for you yesterday. I thought he would have. I didn't even know he played football, to be honest, Jack. How's his transition from singing to football?
He was kind of the jury was out for a while, and in the last 3 or 4 games, he's really come into his own. Like, he's played really well. Played really well yesterday. He puts a shift in. There was never a suspicion that he wasn't trying, but in the last few games, he's played actually really well, and I think he's kind of like edging himself into the team, pretty permanently. But he's good. He's a good compliment. Very different to Ironside, obviously. Hard worker, kind of quick, tricky, and scored yesterday. But it's interesting to see. Big Joe Ironside is like our focal point, and everything attacking wise, we kind of build around him. Obviously, we've got Houlihan behind, who is incredible player. But everything that gets looped into the box, it's quite a lot to put on Joe Ironside's shoulders, to be honest, because like you're kind of relying on him winning the ball, then getting back into position to receive across after he's just won the ball. So there's a lot of pressure on him.
I'm gonna make an admission. Yesterday, I thought because obviously I spoke to Jordan during the week on the preview pod, and I've seen a few Cambridge fans going nuts about Wes Houlihan. And I'll be totally honest, arrogant, big club in League One, Division 3, whatever you want to call it. Was like, oh, surely he can't be that good. Maybe just go on 2 tricks. He's still class, like, isn't he? He's still really, really, really good.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that he's like playing for Cambridge, it's still, you're trying to compute that we've got Wes Houlihan. I mean, yeah, even with his age, I mean, he's older than our manager, but like, yeah, he's just still got it. And yeah, he really does make a difference. So he only plays Saturdays, he doesn't play Tuesdays. And yeah, it's always a difference when he's in the team. And yeah, when he gets the ball down, he really does run the game, and it's, you know, hugely important, massive part of why we got promoted. And I imagine this might be his last season. I mean, he might have one more next season, depending on where we are. But yeah, I mean, he can only go on so long. But yeah, still amazing.
You said there that he only plays Saturdays and not Tuesdays, which is still more than Jack Rodwell. So there you go. Dave, I'll come back to you with this one. We've all been sort of mulling the Johnson conundrum, and I'll be honest, because it's in Twitter. Someone will have screenshotted it somewhere. I kind of broke with him in midweek. I've been breaking for a while with Johnson. I've kind of said my piece on this for a while, and I don't want to be negative on a 1-1 we've won. But your opinion, we've got a game in hand. We're top of the league, just 3 points behind top of the league with that game in hand. Have we shut our pants a little bit early with Johnson, or do you think Johnson's still one bad result away from like a massive amount of pressure?
Yeah, the narrative with Sunderland, it just really annoys me. Excuse me. It really annoys me. It'd be interesting to see what Jack thinks, actually, because it's, for as much as he's feeling the struggle that Wes Houlihan plays for Cambridge, I'm struggling to comprehend that we struggle to beat Cambridge. It's just mad. It's like a parallel universe.
That's how I felt yesterday, and I felt negative for doing it, but I was just like,
I've literally, before all week, I've been nervous about the game yesterday. What is wrong with me? I'm 35-year-old and I'm nervous about playing Cambridge United. And that's no disrespect, like, with the greatest will in the world. But my God, like, just get me out of this league. I don't care if it's Johnson. I don't care if it's Terry Butcher. I just have to get out of this league because it's killing me. And like, yeah, Johnson, you're exactly right what you said before about listening to his post-match. He chats shit. Yeah, I'm going to go off on a rant. It's a farce that we're in League One. It's a farce that we've been in League One for God knows how many years. I don't care that makes me have a chip on my shoulder, not respecting the football pyramid, blah, 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 blah. I just don't care anymore. I just hate this. I hate when we get beat on a Saturday, or we struggle to beat 10-man Shrewsbury. I mean, I don't even know what Shrewsbury's famous for. Like, oh, yeah,
it's actually a really nice away day. I'm not going to lie. I was a bit gutted. I didn't go down to Shrewsbury. It's very Tudor-esque. Went down a few years ago.
Just outside of Shrewsbury, to be fair. So yeah,
I quite liked it. It was one of those away days where I was like, "Way, Shrewsbury first season, like this is going to be great." Went down and was like, "This is actually really nice. I might just go for a wee coffee rather than a few pints." Phil, you're the flip side of me and Dave. I think you're more of a positive type, which is weird considering you're nearly 60.
Very good.
Not true for the record. Not true. Still only 21, Phil, right? I think yesterday, you felt positive about it, and I think most people did, because it was gutsy, and you kind of want to see a win like that at times in this league. But I think I'm kind of with Dave sometimes. Sometimes the league just wears me down because we've been here for that long, and I struggle to, again, no offense to Jack and no offense to any Shrewsbury fans, to anyone on the podcast that comes on. But sometimes I find it hard because I've spent most of my life, well, all my life in the Championship and the Premier League, to get excited about any win at this level at some point, and it frustrates me. But Phil, me and Dave just been far too negative and living in the past.
I think we always need to have a bit of balance. Otherwise, yeah, we're all going to be pretty depressed. We've been down here for what would have been our 4th season, so certainly the novelty has worn off a long time ago. We are all very tired of it. But the reality is, other than voicing our frustration, there's not a lot we can really do other than just try and find some positives. And I'm always a lot more upbeat when we're coming off a win. And all of a sudden you look at the league and you see, as you said, that one win next Saturday when nobody else is playing puts us joint top with the other 3 and going into the Morecambe home game. So all of a sudden we've gone from, doom and gloom to things could be looking good. But as far as Johnson's concerned, another thing I'm tired of is just the constant changing of managers. Full season now. We've tried it 3 times before. It hasn't worked down at this level. We know it used to work every season in the Premier League. We got in trouble. We changed the manager. We stayed up, bar obviously the last time with you know who. So I'm willing to persevere. It's really a real swing from where we were with Parkinson. I couldn't stand listening to Parkinson in his interviews. He didn't want to be there. He, honest to God, he just would send you to sleep. Whereas Johnson's obviously the complete opposite. You kind of shut him up, and he's probably a bit over the top with how he goes on with his sort of David Brent style to interviews. But yeah, I'm probably just more frustrated with the constant change. I honestly can't see how in the short term, which is this season, getting up this season, changing the manager again is going to have the effect unless it's somebody amazing, which, let's be honest, we're going to struggle to attract given the budget that we have and where we are in the football pyramid. One game at a time. Yeah, maybe this time next week I'll be back to doom and gloom again, but let's try and keep the positivity for this week. Yeah.
There's been a lot of stuff chucked at Johnson, and I think I openly said I wanted him out earlier in the week. I was that frustrated with the Shrewsbury game. And I actually don't dislike him as a person. I know there's a lot of stuff being thrown around, but I don't know him to dislike him for a start. And I don't like his David Brentisms, but realistically, I'm really want him to prove me wrong, and I really want him to achieve, because in the same sense, I don't really want to be changing manager all the time. I'm really not certain Johnson's the man, so I'm kind of a conflict with that, and probably edging more towards the Johnson now. But I'm desperate to see him do well, and I hope by the end of the season I get loads of tweets chucked at me about when I wanted Johnson gone, because I'd like nothing more than to be completely and utterly wrong, because ultimately I'd rather someone do well than me be right, which is the most important thing. But I wanted to throw the same sort of question at Jack. Obviously it's come from a different perspective in a way, and you've just come up, you've got this young manager that's come through, done really, really well for Cambridge United. Tons of pressure on him. A lot of people have been saying, well, not a lot, a few people have been saying, I don't know if the players still want to play for the manager, don't know if he's the right man. From an opposition perspective yesterday, Jack, what did you make of Sunderland's performance compared to the likes of Wigan, Rotherham and MK Dons, who you've played recently?
I don't know. It wasn't much of a game, to be honest. The conditions were pretty poor, and Sunderland first half were good value for leading. But like I say, it wasn't particularly a game. Second goal was an absolute banger. Neither side looked particularly dangerous. It was a bit of a duff game, to be honest. And you kept the ball really well in the first half. And also, to be fair, second half, you absorbed the pressure really well. So as much as we didn't manage the game well yesterday, you managed the game really well in the second half. And the last 20 minutes, you took all the momentum out of the game and basically killed it. Even though it was only 2-1, it felt at 70 minutes like you were kind of cruising. And yeah, kind of competent. I tell you what, we went into yesterday expecting to get something out of it. And David's point about you guys being down here and not being being able to understand playing us, we're the same. We can't believe we're playing you. We played Wednesday, we played Ipswich, but yesterday was somehow it's this is massive for us. So it was a really big game. And with all the injuries that you had, I think there was a kind of air of confidence, a big crowd for us. And I think there was an air of confidence, and I think we thought we were going to get something from that game. So I think there's quite, we're quite disappointed, but yeah, you looked all right, but you didn't need to be particularly good to beat us yesterday, to be honest.
I suppose it's quite hard to judge as well against the MK Dons, Wigan, Rotherham. I know you've played all of us recently, but like you said, the conditions are so vastly different. If we're judging who's been the best team against Sunderland this season, you go Rotherham probably, but then you would look at Portsmouth based on results. But that game was a total washout. You couldn't judge either team on it. And I actually think that was the first time I've seen Sunderland get humped 4-0, and most people be quite balanced about it and just go, well, that game was pointless because the weather was so bad. But on to Cambridge yourself, like you say, out of those games you've had, you probably haven't got the points that you wanted. But you're still 6 points above the relegation zone, which is a really good place to be for Cambridge. It's disappointing for any side to get beat at any point, especially with I felt the confidence from Cambridge going in and the underconfidence from us. But is your riding feeling quite positive around Cambridge still?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to be real. Everyone had us, pegged to the bottom of the table. for pretty much the whole season. So to come in and hold our own in this league is like, we're happy, but we don't just want to, be like just in the league and existing. We want to, cement our place in the league and then, be a League One team next season. We've got a tricky December coming up. We've got away trips to Cheltenham and Charlton, and then hosting Rotherham, and then away at Wickham, and then ending the year playing Donny. So like it's a really tough December, and suddenly that 6 point sway, with a couple of losses and teams around winning, will not be much of a buffer. So we do need to we need to get stuff out of these games. We've had a few comebacks. We've been 2-0 down to we're 2-0 down to Crewe. 2-0 down to Ipswich, and we've come back into these games and drawn 2-2. We've shown resilience. We've shown we can kind of hold our own, but we need to be picking up points as well. So, it's nice that we're there at the moment, but we need to work on that a bit.
The big and most important thing from yesterday for me, which is something I didn't realize till I did the preview show, is the one and only Lionel Perez was there at halftime yesterday. It was meant to be. Did he come and give everyone a wave, Jack?
I'm not going to lie to you. I went into the supporters club to thaw out as soon as the halftime went. So I was not present. I know he was definitely at the game. There was many photos of him at the airport. Some people actually went to the airport to like greet him off the plane. He is an absolute cult hero down here. So he was definitely here, and what a man. And we'll I wasn't there to see him, but I think he was there.
Bless him. I love a bit of Lionel. Dave, Lionel, favorite Lionel memory. Let's go into a slight tangent, and don't say it's Charlton in the playoffs.
Definitely not. Like, is it? It's like a cult movie, isn't he? He's like really wasn't that great, but you just can't help but love him. Even though he went to the Mags as well, it's like, what's gone on here?
Well, the thing I loved about when he went to the Mags, they asked him about going to the Mags, didn't they? And they said, why did you go there? Like years later in an interview, and he said, well, Sunderland didn't want us. Peter Reid said didn't want us, and I was that upset. I tried to see what the nearest club was to Sunderland so I could stay around the area. Bless his heart.
It's brilliant. My favourite moment from Lionel Perez would have to be like how he took it on the chin when Cantona chipped him. Because that goal was unbelievable that Cantona scored. I mean, to be fair, there was about 5 mistakes from our outfield players not smashing through Cantona on the halfway line first.
Yeah.
But the audacity to then dink it from the edge of the box. And Perez, like, I suppose he's like the David Ginola of goalkeepers, isn't he? He just stood there, took it on the chin, and thought, it doesn't matter if I stand here and look good, I am going to get a L'Oreal advert next week, so I don't care.
I think mine's from a non-cult hilarious moment of Lionel, and he ruined it like 4 or 5 days later when the playoff final came and he let Richard Rufus head into an empty net. But Sheffield United playoff semi-final. Phil, is that Lionel's best moment in the Sunderland shirt, the double save against Dean Saunders?
Yeah, I know. I was racking my brains trying to think of some positive moments, but you have to remember we probably wouldn't have got to Wembley if he didn't put in those performances in the semi-final. But I have to admit, I still sometimes wake up in the middle of the night with Lionel coming out for that corner.
Horrendous, man.
It's not a good nightmare.
Phil, before we go, obviously a couple of questions. The big one for me is 09's out for 3 to 9 months. McGeady's also out. It's fair to say injuries have stacked up. Time to bring some players back from loan. Time to get some free agents in, or plough on with what we've got till Christmas and then make proper signings.
Well, certainly youngsters are going to be in and around the squad. I mean, we saw Harris come on yesterday. He had Embleton and O'Brien there as options, but he went with Harris. So he's not afraid to throw them in if he thinks there's a role for them. It is a worry, definitely. We really are at breaking point. We can't afford any more. The worry is that they are all fairly long term. We are looking into January before we start to see any of the fullbacks return, and obviously 09 and McGeady are going to be over to even longer than that. So I don't know. Well, still probably a good 8 or 9 games left. We've got Papa John's game. We've got the League Cup quarter final as well. You can't see us not picking up more injuries. I noticed Diamond scored again for Harrogate yesterday. I know we've got a load of wingers, but it might be time to bring him back in and get him in and around the squad. But we're going to be tested for sure. But that's the reason that we have a big squad. At the beginning of the season, I think we did have 2 players for every position, or certainly by the end of the transfer window. We're getting towards 1.5 for every position at the minute, but we'll see how it goes.
It's a bit of a shame with the left back situation, and I know a few people have mentioned maybe putting Dice in, but Dice has played predominantly more attacking left wing, and I seen him pre-season against Hearts. I was covering the game in Heart, and he was at left back because we hadn't signed Huggins or Serkin or anyone by that point, and not writing him off, but I think he's very raw, and that would be a concern for me, if I'm honest. I think for me, I would probably stick to Doyle. Bring Callum McFadden back. I'm sure crew will send him on. That's a joke for anyone listening. Definitely would be okay with Callum McFadden staying where he is. Final question, because obviously Zoom's telling me we're running out here. I'll come to you first, Jack. Question we always end on for both sides, but what does the result mean yesterday in the context of Cambridge's season?
It's a bit of a damaging one. I mean, like I say, those last 2 games this week to get a point from is fairly gutting. We've got to look forward now. Obviously, you've got Papa John's on Tuesday, which don't care about, but our squad depth isn't great. So a lot of our key players are going to play in that. And then, like you said, if you pick up a couple of injuries in that competition, suddenly the season gets very difficult. This is always a crunch time in the Football League. So yeah, December's going to be really important. We need to get a win, in the next 3, and it's not going to be easy to find. But yeah, we need to get some points on the board. So yeah, yesterday was disappointing.
Dave, same question to you. Obviously, on the Sunderland side, what do you think the result means in the context of our season?
Do you want positive, Dave, or do you want negative, Dave?
Let's go positive, Dave. Let's end on a positive. Do a shit sandwich. I started positively. You went with a negative in the middle. Then me and Phil and you will all end on the positive, like a true shit sandwich.
Well, I'm still, everyone listening, whoever listens to me, will expect me to be real and negative. So I'll be negative first, and then I'll be positive. First thought, false hope, as per usual. But positive me, we've got the games in hand. The prospect is there to actually go and do something. Oxford's a big test next Saturday. It's another proper team, a good top half team for League One. Yeah, after next Saturday, ask me the question. If we get 3 points from that, if we manage to adapt to it, then yeah, let's hope this streaky Johnson goes on a big winning streak for once,
I know what you mean with Sunderland when you said, like, is it false hope? Because I was talking to Phil yesterday, like, via WhatsApp after the win, and he was buzzing. Pint of whiskey, that was it, Phil, wasn't it?
It was definitely beer.
Beer, that's the one. I knew it was something like that. But it's like, when you're a kid and you watch a horror movie and you're like 5 or 6 and you think, it's not real. But then you get in bed and you go, what if the monster is under the bed, though? Like, what if the monster is under the bed? That's how I feel about Sunderland. I'm like, yay, we've won. Oh, God, what's under the bed? I don't know if that's the best analogy, but hopefully people get where I'm coming from. Same question to you. What do you think the result means in the context of our season?
Yeah, well, let's first of all just Cambridge. I think, Jack, you don't need to worry. They're going to be absolutely fine this season. We've seen some pretty terrible teams down in League One this season and previous seasons, and I know the conditions weren't a good indicator for both teams, but they knocked the ball around nice. You can see there's a plan there, and they'll be absolutely fine. For us, yeah, I mean, it's just week to week, isn't it? We're up 1 week, we're down the next week. I think it's just the way it's going to be. It is probably the toughest League One we've had since we've been down here. If we do manage to beat Oxford next week, which, as Dave says, is not going to be easy, for sure. I imagine the bookies will agree. It's probably going to be pretty evens as far as the odds are concerned for both teams. But then all of a sudden, we're right up there with them on 38 points, and things look quite different. But they're going to have to just get this kind of siege mentality. they're down to a much smaller number now. It's going to be pretty much the same group of players going into every game. If they can get that, and it's going to be wins by the odd goal, probably. We're not. I know we've had a couple of big wins against Crew and Cheltenham, the other one this season, but it's going to be 2-1s. We're probably going to need to score 2 goals, 3 goals to win games, because I just cannot see us keeping the ball out at the other end.
Before we go, those of you who live in and around Scotland, obviously myself and Phil and Dan and Neil are hosting a night with Alex Ray on Friday at, is it Dow's Bar? Am I pronouncing that correctly, Phil?
Yep.
Dow's Bar. I don't know how I could have pronounced it wrong, but I thought Dow's Bar. If you want to come along, £5 ticket. I can't promise I'll be entertaining as the host, but I can promise you Alex Ray will be. He's one of the funniest men I've probably ever met. I hope he doesn't mind me blowing smoke with his backside with that. But get yourself along. Remember the good old days when we weren't in League One and we're actually quite good. I'll try my best to make sure that my questions are centered around when Sunderland were class and we were near the top of the Premier League. But nonetheless, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy Papa John's during the week, and hopefully we're speaking about a win against Oxford next week. Sorry if there's been a little bit of negativity, but we're trying to be as balanced as we possibly can. At the end of the day, Sunderland won. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks now. Bye-bye.